Planet Lark guitars here. Today, what do we got? Well, there it is. To by some to be the Holy Grail, the mighty Mark IIC reissue in all of its glory and awesomeness. Some notable players on the mighty and fabled Mark IIC is, let's see, you had, of course, John Petrucci, the big one. You had Prince, he's a Coliseum player. Let's see, Neil Schon, Steve Lukather, another Coliseum player. Guys in, well, at least Brad Killis from Night Ranger, Vivian Campbell, Neil Schon, Michael Landau, a bunch of other studio guys during that particular era. So I guess the first things that we need to do to debunk some things of like, oh, reissues. Randall Smith never wanted to do that. Well, remember they did do a Mark I reissue back in the late 90s. Also the King Snake. And in terms of a lot of things, there's always been a C or a 2C+ reissue in all of the Mark series amps after the Mark IV. But now you get a dedicated one. As close to the original as humanly possible. Now the cool thing that Randall was always about is innovation. And whenever this amp came out in 84, I think it was late 83 as the story goes, whenever Doug and Mike were playing around while Randall was, away trying to get more gain out of the 2C. And they came up with the 2C+ circuit. And when Randall got back from Germany, they showed it to him, had some tweaks, and into production it went. There was only the records are kind of shaky then, but, probably way, under 2,000 that were made in 84 through 85. And the rest is history ever since. People have been wanting it. And they're super hard to come by, expensive. Here, I'm very blessed to have this original here, which we're going to be comparing this throughout from time to time. This is the one that was actually used for this reissue. So some very cool things. And again, very blessed to be able to have that. This got the all-world transformer in it. And as you can see, it does not have the pull deep switch. There was a lot of weird things that happened then, just like this other one over here. That one doesn't have it either, but there's all kind of crazy things that happened then, but nonetheless, they are all amazingly awesome. Let's talk a few things real quick about in terms, what is the difference in between these two? A lot of people, you can never make a real one. Well, technically, I guess you could say that, considering that, some of the parts you can no longer get, or they're illegal to use for codes and whatnot. However, the big changes in between these is, the LDRs are not being used for the switching because you just can't legally use those. And then, some little parts here and there but however, in terms of this reissue where most of the time was spent, because the circuit was already done, which is what Randall, what he was always about was innovation. So that's why there was always an evolution throughout the Mark series. It's like, well, man, if this amp was so good, why didn't they just always make it? Well, Randall was always about, man, what's the next best thing? Because, yeah, this was the first thing that they really kind of worked out their effects loop. The first, channel switching, came in the Mark II, but really this is more like a mode switching amp since it's shared EQ. However, once you had a clean and then a high gain circuit, well, guys were wondering, well, hey, I want a rhythm, kind of something in between, which then came the Mark III. Then that changed into, the Mark IV, which, had some independent EQ controls, then into the Mark V, and then into the kind of, the total evolution and kind of perfection, if you ask me, the Mark VII, which is an absolute beauty of a workman. Good job, Randall. That is your masterpiece. But you did a bunch of stuff. Love you, Randall. All right, so back to these guys. So most of the time that was spent on this was done to source the parts and to actually have things that were made that as the close thing possible to reflect what the classic vintage 2C was. And I think that they did a pretty knockout job, which you'll see here. Outside of, little things of pot tolerances or, brand new tubes might be a little bit brighter. And just so you know, both of these amps are loaded up with the exact same tubes. So it's not like I'm using something different. They could both have the 445s in them, if I remember correctly. That's what the 2Cs are shipping with. And you can run these like the old ones in the Simo class, where you can run mismatched tubes, 6L6 and EL34s. You would do the EL34s in the Class A sockets, which are the outside sockets, which is how I run my other one over here, which I love. To me, it's the best. But we'll get into that later. Okay, so let's get into the controls in between these guys and how this particular amp works. This is kind of like if you've ever heard of like boogies are really hard to dial in. Well, this is kind of a reason why. And the Mark IV was a doozy. However, nowadays, it's like, man, everything is laid out really good and simple by channel. You have independent controls, mode switching. This is going to be shared EQ, dual mode amp with some push-pulls. You have global presence control and reverb. You can switch your EQ on and off via the foot switch, or you can have it auto selected for just the gain side, or both modes. But how the channel layout is you have your volume 1, which has a push-pull on it for a bright that will affect the clean mode only. Then you have treble, bass, and middle. The treble and bass both have a shift knob on them. Middle, nothing. Then you have the master 1, which is to your clean mode with the pull deep. If you look at the original one, it says the changeover nameplates, which has the gain boost on there. Little story about that here in a second. But then next one is your lead drive, which is going to be a full cascading gain amp, which will interact whenever you're in lead mode. These volume 1 and their lead drive will coincide with each other. You have the pull to change to your lead channel there, or you can foot switch it. And then you have the lead master, which is how you can dial in between your clean on your master 1 to your gain mode here to kind of get your volume levels matched. But these do coincide with each other as well. If you turn this one up, it does feed that one, and you get some kind of cool reactions going on with that. And you do have a pull bright on your lead master 2, which affects only your lead channel. All right, so back to the treble side. What will happen on the pull shift there is this only affects your gain channel. And what this does is whenever it's in on the gain side, it's going to give more of a Fender style circuit, a little bit more high end presence and, well, like an old Fender amp. Whenever you pull it out, it shifts that treble lower. So it will give you a more fat response in your lead side. The bass, whenever it's in, it is in normal mode. Whenever you pull it out, it gives you a extended bass, more like a Fender circuit, big low end. And both of these are up front in the actual pre-circuit. So they're going to be before the power section and all that. So what this does is it's really going to affect everything down chain as well. On your master one, you have the pull deep, which is global, just like the bass shift is. And what this does is this shifts and pulls in your low end. But the cool thing about this one is it's way further down the actual circuit. So this is in the first stage on the effects loop return. So going right into the power section. So what this does is allows you to have a tighter low end response outside of your pre-section, and it doesn't get too flubby and fat, which is why a lot of the times this will be pulled in your global amp or definitely in your lead side. Pull bright, again, on the lead master is for your lead channel only, and that's whenever you want people's faces to melt. That's basically what that's used for. You got a little face on your shirt there, man. All right, so without further ado, that's basically the controls on this. Again, you have a presence control and reverb on the back. On the EQ section on this, in the middle is off. Down would be both channels or modes would be affected. Up would be dedicated to the lead mode only. Whenever you're in the middle, you can also hook up the foot switch to control that via foot switch, which will also be a 2-button one, which will control your reverb on and off. And that is a TRS plug-in on the back underside panel of the amp, which picture will be inserted there. All right. It's an interesting thing in between these is these kind of changed in between the amps. Some crazy things were going on back in the early 80s. Well, you can only imagine. So in terms of face plates, I hear a lot of like, oh man, it doesn't have, can't be factory if it doesn't have the pull deep on there. That's the only thing. As well, this one's got the pull gain boost. This is from '84. This one was done by Randall Smith himself. So that's a really rare one. And this guy over here, that's from September of 1984. It also has the pull boost, not the deep faceplate on it. So they kind of just used parts that they had laying around. They're kind of just build it. Another very interesting thing about these is how many different versions that you could get of these amps back in that day. I mean, you had these are both, of course, now that they reissues based on the Simmel class, which is the most sought after. This guy too, but you could get it, with a DRG, with that would be, with reverb and the graphic EQ and Simmel class. You can get an HRG, is what the JP2C is based on, which would be the 100-watt version, class AB power section with reverb and graphic. Then you can get a 60-watt version with either graphic and reverb, or you could get it without reverb and just graphic, or you could get it with reverb and without graphic, or you could get it, in any of those kind of combinations. All right. So in terms of that, back to that, under 2000 number, that includes all of those different versions, also including the Mega Monster, the Coliseum, which was, 180-watt beast of an amp, which is what Prince played, and Steve Lukather, amongst many others. All right, let's see what some tones of this amp sound like. Okay, signal chain, real quick. Of course, guitar, hands, guitar. But down here, what's going on? So we go into the pedal board here, the Mesa Boogie high wire, and go through this myriad of pedals here, which I didn't use much on this. The only thing that I kind of used was the surge delay at times, and you hear these little bit of the reverb and chorus effect from the Eventide. Then out of that into this head track, which then will split my signal into two heads independently, running a common effects loop through these amps so I can switch back and forth through one cabinet. And the cabinet, which is a 4x12 Mesa Boogie Recto oversized. The old school slant ones with the baffle in front, which you'll get a picture of that. Mic'd with an N22 and SM57, then run through these two Rupert New Designs shuffler channels. And that's basically it. All right. So without further ado, again, so clean mode. Here we are. So we have volume 1 is going to do our input gain for that. Remember, this will also feed into the lead mode. Treble, mid, and bass, right? And then the master. So these knobs right here, what's going to do your clean, right? So let's do the neck pickup. Now remember, this pull shift here does absolutely nothing on this mode. Nothing, only the actual lead mode. Now you got the pull bright here. I usually always have that pulled out. This is a global function on that one. All right, so the pull bass here again. Remember earlier I was saying this is up front in the circuit, so we're going to add in the kind of like that Fender low end. This totally shifts, almost like run that knob off, depending on how you want to run things. Big and boomy, bassy. And that also will affect the lead mode. But there it is. I never use the EQ on the clean channel here. I don't really see the need for that. However, a lot of guys do. If you're mostly a clean guy, then that will allow you even more sculptability out of that. But how I kind of do here is, as you see it, and my volume 1 pulled about 7, treble about 7.5, bass is 3, mids about 3.5. Pull deep is on. Remember, that is a global thing. Tighter low end. Not as boomy as that bass shift. So again, so the bass shift is pulled here up front in the circuit. Nothing. Pull deep. Tighter in the power section. And that's what we like. Tight, quick response. Want all that flubbiness. All right, so let's add some delay to this effects loop and just get some clean tones going. See what the reverb sounds like on this clean channel? This thing's got a great clean channel in it, but actually it's phenomenal. Use it all the time. But what do people really want? They want the gain. The gain. Now, something to be talked about whenever you go to the gain, whenever you have an amp that is a single channel dual mode or, two channel amp with shared EQ, however you want to look at it, is there are going to be trade-offs. You can get a really good clean channel, and I kind of use this setup how I would use it live, where I sacrifice a little bit on my cleans, where you could take it back if you were using it for a dedicated clean amp. I would probably not run it as hot on my volume 1 input because, well, I'm using it for my cascading high gain stuff. I'm going to have to pull this a little out and you get some switches off, That's why you need 2 of them. We could have a dedicated one for your cleans and dedicated one for your leads. So first thing is the pull shift. Remember, this is only on your lead mode. So whenever it is in, it gives you that Fender more top end to your circuit. So like mega high end. out. A little bit fatter, makes things seem more open. Nice picky there. More scooped out too. Okay, so bass, remember this was up front, so this is going to be flub down whenever you use this. If we were to take the EQ out. Back in. Just tighter. Pull deep, disengaged. Where'd it go? Sound like I'm on a radio now. Again, this is the first in the circuit on the return side, so power section nice and tight. And of course, the thing about a Mark series amp is in your bass knob, having your settings a little bit lower, because this will get kind of out of shape real fast in your low end if you start going to higher settings on this. You know, just out of control, super subsonic, kind of like low end. You want it to be tight, so keep your settings lower, which will, again, where the EQ will come in to make it even tighter. All right. So, before I engage this EQ, let's look at what this bright does here on your, this is the face melting setting. Oh. And it will add more noise to the circuit, as you can hear. And it will give the illusion of course, more gain, because super top end, a little bit more high hotness running it into the circuit. I like a more fatter sound, so again, for me. Now let's get this EQ going. A couple of things, so we'll set it up. Pretty clean. Affecting the circuit, you know, on that, so good work. So now this is going to be in the second stage on your return in your power section, so this is where you can add super tight low end to it. Remember to keep it low here, then you can start to boost here. A little bit goes a long way. But most people are going to do this immediately. Let's go to the classic V. Metallica in the box, and if you want more, pull that out. Okay, so again, I like a little bit more fatter, darker tone. And again, like on the back of this amp, I think I have the presence running about 3. This is a very powerful knob that will interact and make things go wild very fast. So if we kept this hard V segment here, so where I got this is like, let's see, but 7 on our volume 1, and then running into our lead drive about 8, right? If you wanted to go full gain on this, you can see just how much that changes from 8 to 10, adds in more high end. Going all the way up over here. A lot of noise now. So that's a lot of gain. All right, well, anyways, back to more normal things, back to the presence knob. So keeping that hard V, if I can reach around here and do this, find that knob. All the way down, and you can tell that it shifts the whole EQ all the way up, and it just accentuates everything. Of course, it does add in more high end as well. And that's like at that's at 6. 6. So in the hard V setting. Super bright, but let's see if we can take that and then bring this down a little bit. Let's take our 6600 down to neutral. Alright, already warmer, liking that. Let's boost 2200 a little bit. Let's bring our 750 up. 240 up a little bit. Go volume 1 back to 7. And our lead drive's about 7.5. I took that presence back down to about 3. Again, it's kind of bright for me. I like a fatter thing, but my kind of settings, which I love on this, is I'll use 80. I'll go about halfway up. All right. So 7 on volume 1, about 7.5. Volume 1 is pulled. Treble is about 7.5 pulled. Bass 3 in. Middle 4. On the master one, you have to set this depending on your playing environment. I got it at right about 3, a little bit under 3, pulled deep. My lead drive is about 7.5, and my lead master is on 3, pushed in. EQ, bottom slider 80 is boosted a little bit, probably about halfway in between line, the midline and the top line. 240 is just sitting above the midline. 750 is halfway in between the midline and the lower line. 2200 is just above the midline, and 6600 is neutral, right in the middle. Nice and warm for me. I like that. And makes for a great lead, nice and sweet. Let's hear how this thing sounds with some extended version on this. Those 7s will be a little bit darker, so let's boost our 6600 a little bit. I'll take my gain up to lead master and the lead drive to 8. Good, about a little over 7 there. So in terms of the gain stuff, so on a Mark IIC Plus, it's amazing to think that this was going on in 84. I mean, that's a lot of gain for back then. It can still hold up with modern high gain amplifiers. Now, it's not going to be the monster gain hound that a lot of, think or become accustomed to. However, super sweet, super tight, and great harmonic overtones. So the thing that separates, the 2C plus and really the 2C, on there was a hemel class was introduced So this is 75 watt amp whenever you're running in simulcast power. You can go down to, they have it rated about 25 watts that are on these whenever you go to the Class A circuits. If you're running EL34s, it will be less than that in those sockets. But and you ask, well, how come these are only 75 whenever like the Mark IV, 5, and 7s would go to 90 watts? Well, this was before Randall figured out, wiring the Class A sockets in pentode. These are triode only. It wasn't until the Mark IVs whenever you could switch into the pentode mode, which made the amp more aggressive and tighter, and so on and so forth, which is the really cool thing about those with the modern evolution of all this through there is, you can even get more out of those. GB2C2. With that being said, this is the closest thing that you can get to owning one of these originals. And I think that they did a knockout job, which you're about to see how close that these things are. Outside of some pot tolerances and, brand new tubes, you might have a little bit nice, burn in or whatever. Again, these are exact same tubes. Got them as close as we could in terms of knob in a quick time here. But the feel and the overall, inspiring nature of the amp is there. And, so, hey, you can have one for $3,500, or you can, one like this would probably, who knows nowadays, 15, 20 grand for one of these that say RCS on them. It's pretty rare to have one that he did. All right, so let's just see how these two sound A-Bing between them. So we use the same 7 here. We'll just play a riff on it and see how it goes. All right, we'll start on this guy. I'm gonna play a riff. I'll look at the camera. Go to this guy. Play a little bit of lead stuff through the reissue first, neck pickup. Hold on. Reissue. Hold one. Reissue. Original. Reissue. Reissue. Here's what they sound like clean. The reissue. Original. Reissue. Original. Reissue. Original. Reissue. Both sound phenomenal. Great. Feel great. I'm sure if you spent lots of time tinker, you could be hard pressed to blindfold somebody to not be able to tell the difference. Just some time, but they did a knockout job. So if you can't get your hands on one of these, now get your hands on these Lark guitars and get them. Stick around if you want to hear them with EL34s. Okay. Here we are back with EL34s in the Class A socket. So that's on the outside sockets. And we'll be comparing that one to this guy over here, which is another one of my originals that I run with EL34s in it. I love it. So it's got Siemens 450s, the new old stock German ones in the outer sockets. So let's hear what they sound like, and I'll be switching in between them. So this is the reissue. Old. Reissue. Old. Reissue. Old. Hold. All right, so with EL34s in the amp, you know, to me, I like it a little bit better. It gives you a little bit more sweetness on the top end, a little bit more bite, little claw, not too much, and also amp feels a little bit more elastic to me, which I like a lot. Illusion of a little bit more gain. Of course, this one over here that has the orange light on it, though, everybody knows that those have more gain in them. Well, final thoughts on this. Yeah, I think that they did a fantastic job. If you can get your hands on one, grab it. I mean, all the way down to the face plates, which you can see the meticulous hours of time to source all this stuff to get the printing right. I mean, very good. It's very good. And the light, how they made the chassis, no piping, as you can see these old ones here, just how they are. So this is your chance to own part of history. And why not? Buy 2 of them. Buy 3 of them. Buy them all. From Mark Guitars.